Good morning. This is the time and place for zoning cases for the hearing of June 26, 2013. My name is Bradley Collin, and I'll be conducting the hearing as the hearing officer. We have two cases scheduled for today, and the relevant exhibits are posted on the panels directly behind me. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of these green speaker cards located at the front by the entrance door, and then either give it to myself or one of the planning assistants. I'd like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officers meeting are recorded on tape as part of the public record. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. We have, as I mentioned, two cases scheduled today. The second of the two cases is located at 6406 San Fernando Road. Is there anybody in the audience that was here for that particular case? Okay, just for the record, this case is being continued to July 10th, 2013. So everyone is aware of that. And that is an application for a conditional use permit for off-site sale of alcoholic beverages and an existing food market processing business located at 6406 San Fernando Road, case number PCUP 1309113. The remaining case is for a conditional use permit located at 3060 Hollywell Place, case number PCUP 1233702. The hearing will proceed as follows. I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what the request is for the subject conditional use permit. And the case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, again clearly stating both name and address within a 3-minute time limit. And then the applicant will be given the opportunity to make any closing comments if desired. The hearing will then be closed, and the case either taken under submission or decision may be made. So, as I mentioned, this is a conditional use permit to construct a new 2,600 square foot, two-story single-family residence with an attached two-car garage on a vacant lot having an average current slope that exceeds 50%, located at 3060 Hollywell Place in the R1R Restricted Residential Zone, Floor Area Ratio District 2, described as portions of Lot 13, tract number 22628, and the average current slope of the lot is about 79%. At this point, I'd like to ask our case planner to give our presentation, please.
All right. Would you like me to do the interdepartmental comments first, or?
Up to you.
Okay. I'll just go over the case first then. All right, good morning. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 2,600 square foot single-family residence on an approximately 48,000 square foot vacant lot located at 3060 Hollywell Place. The lot is zoned R1R with a floor area ratio of 2, or in the District 2. The lot has an average current slope of 79%. In the R1R zone, approval of a conditional use permit is required when a lot has an average current slope exceeding 50%. Staff believes that the 4 required findings can be made and recommends approval of the conditional use permit. The proposed use will be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. The subject site has a land use designation of very low density residential and a corresponding R1R zoning classification. The land use designation and zoning classifications are intended to protect low-density residential neighborhoods. The preservation of open space and physical features is also important. The proposal to construct a new single-family residence is consistent with the general plan and zoning code. The neighborhood in which the subject site is located is a low-density residential, is surrounded by low-density residential and open space. The residence is proposed in the far western portion of the site, and the remainder of the site will be unaltered, preserving the terrain and the on-site oak trees. The circulation element classifies Hollywell Place as a local street. This type of street usually serves the residential needs of the immediate community. The proposed project will be consistent with this element. The open space and conservation element does not identify this site for park or open space use. The proposed single-family residence will not be detrimental to the health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment. The construction of the proposed residence would involve approximately 1,200 cubic yards of grading, a relatively minimal amount given the size of the site. The vast majority of the site, as I've mentioned before, will be untouched. Some of the existing homes in the neighborhood were constructed on manufactured pads, which is a construction method that the city now discourages in hillside areas. The proposed residence will be built into the slope of the lot with several levels and stepped back in accordance with the hillside design guidelines. The soils and engineering investigation for the project found that the proposed building site will not be subject to any hazards due to mud or debris flow, provided the recommendations in the report are followed. The Public Works Engineering section did stipulate that a new drainage swale behind the rear retaining wall be designed and constructed to have the same or greater capacity than the existing one at a similar location. And that was the one comment that was generated from the interdepartmental comments. All the other comments were just standard conditions. Then going back, the urban forester stated that construction of the project would not adversely impact the on-site oak trees. The proposed project will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. The site and the surrounding area are zoned for very low density single-family housing and are developed in this manner. The majority of the neighborhood is built out, and therefore the project will not impact the normal development of the surrounding property. The single-family house is consistent with the surrounding development and should not impede any redevelopment of nearby homes. The proposed single-family house will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. Oh, I'm sorry. I've repeated myself here. Adequate public and private facilities will be provided for the proposed single-family residence. Given that the area is an established community and has been for many years, public and private utilities are in place and will be available for the proposed development. Discretionary actions in the R1R zone need to take into consideration the consistency with the municipal code, the hillside design guidelines, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. The hillside design guidelines recommends minimizing grading to preserve the natural hillside appearance, open space, and groves of native trees. The site planning of the project minimizes the on-site grading to an area where the house is proposed and its immediate surroundings. Again, it's in the far western portion of the site. The remainder of the site will be untouched with existing native vegetation. The guidelines stipulate that retaining walls should not be a dominant visual feature. Most of the retaining wall proposed is hidden behind the residence. Due to the topography of the site and the location of the street, the wall will have limited visibility. Also, according to the guidelines, new homes should follow the topography of the site, be built into the upslope to minimize landform alterations. The garage and the level above with the main living areas are dug into the hillside, while the master bedroom and the secondary bedrooms and family room are stepped back from their respective lower rooms. Additionally, the house is proposed to include 4 levels to mimic the topography of the site. No portion of the residence at any point has any more than 2 stories. Both of these design features are used to address the topography of the site and are consistent with the guidelines. The proposed single-family residence is compatible with houses in the neighborhood in terms of location and size. Split-level designs, as is the proposed residence, is not common. However, this type of design is consistent with the guidelines, as I just mentioned above. The subject site at 48,000 square feet is much larger than the majority of the lots in the neighborhood, and aside from existing drainage swales, is in a natural state in terms of topography and vegetation. The majority of these existing residences on Hollywell Place were developed in a more traditional manner, where sites were graded to enable flat building pads for the single-family house to be constructed. Behind these houses, many of the backyards have been terraced, although some remain in their natural state. The proposed project requires relatively minimal landform alteration, since the residence is built into the hillside and has a confined footprint and is located relatively close to the street. The proposed residence, since it is located close to the street on the far western portion of the lot, visual impacts of the house on surrounding property as well as the greater Chevy Chase neighborhood will be relatively minimal compared to most developed hillside residential areas. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. Actually, I understand we have a representative from our engineering department here. If I could ask one quick question.
Chris Chiu from Public Works Engineering.
Thank you. A quick question. I understand several years ago there was what was called a landslide, either from the property or up above the property. Do we know what it was that actually came down?
At that time, in the year 2006, there was this heavy rain in those years, and most probably it's a superficial flow from the surface of the hill, and that was the last mudslide that we heard about. To my recollection, I have not heard of any more mudslides since 2006 that was reported.
And the superficial flow is just like loose dirt that's on top of the soil?
From heavy rain, yeah.
It was just sitting on top of what was currently out there. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
At this point, I'm going to open up the public hearing, and we'll start off with the applicant, which is Mr. Edward Hagobian. Public hearing is now open.
Good morning, Mr. Collin, and thank you, Roger, for presenting the project. I have a question. Do I have to go through these 4 findings, or I believe Roger already presented those 4 findings, and it will be a repetition if I talk about the 4 findings, right?
It's best to hear your version.
Well, it's more or less the same. So starting from the A, how will the proposed use be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan? Proposed use is a single-family residence. The zone is R1R District 2. The objectives of the general plan for this zone is low-density residential use. Floor area ratio of this proposed house is only 5.41. When I compare this to the other houses in that neighborhood, it's a huge difference. I mean, the floor area ratio on 3030 Hollywell, 3011 Hollywell, 3021 Hollywell, these are about 30% compared to 5.41%. Same is like the lot coverage. And the ungraded area that is supposed to be at least 40%, it is much more than that. It's close to like 90% ungraded area. Same is the landscaping that is supposed to be 40%. Again, as you can see in that map, it's by far more than that. The lot coverage is 6.6%, while in this zone it's allowed to be 40% lot coverage. So, which is by far lower than the maximum allowed. The exterior appearance and the architectural style and circulation is compatible with the neighborhood houses. Therefore, the proposed project is in harmony with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. So in all categories of the zoning code, which is landscaping percentage, lot coverage, floor area ratio, ungraded area, this house either exceeds the minimum requirement or is less than whatever is required to be. Anyway, going to second B, why will the proposed use and its associated structures and facilities not to be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare, or to the environment? It's a single-family house, and uses for just one family that will live in this house. There will be no unusual activity in this property, and therefore there is nothing to be detrimental to the public health. What I can think of the public health is like, let's say, backing up from the garage. We are backing up to the cul-de-sac where it's the end of the street, and we have a good visibility. Nothing is blocking the view of the person who will back up from the garage to the cul-de-sac. Anyway, to the left and to the right of the house, there are no neighbors. The closest neighbor to the west is like 300 feet. To the east side of it, again, same thing. There's nobody living there. So I cannot think of any kind of detrimental issue, activity in this property that can affect the general welfare. Beyond that, these issues like exiting from the garage, entering through the garage, lighting from the house or noise from the house, there's nothing else to be concerned about this house. See, why will the proposed use and facilities not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property? This is very similar to item B again. Again, same comments I have. Use of this proposed structure is for a single-family residence. The use is the same as all other uses in that neighborhood. On the east side of where the house is located, the rest of the same property with an unusual large side setbacks. Our setbacks are huge. The required side setback is 10 feet, and this side, the setback is more than 100, and on the east side is more than 150 foot. At the west side, the side setback is more than required 10 foot. the front setback from the street at closest location, because it's in an angle, the house is built in an angle with the street, the minimum is required 15 feet. The rest is more than that. At the rear is the same thing. Required setback, I believe, is 10 feet as interior setback, and it's much more than that. Only the retaining wall is about 40 feet from the property line. Going to item number D, explain how adequate public and private facilities such as utilities, landscaping, parking spaces, and traffic circulation measures are or will be provided for the proposed use. Well, all the public utilities are there. Driving circulation is very simple. It's like any other house. You drive directly into the garage with the slope that is according to the requirements of the zoning code, and you back up, and there's no issue with the traffic. Now, beyond these issues, I would like to mention that the average slope that is, as far as I see, is shown 79%. The slope of the footprint where we build the house is much less than that, is 65.95%. So if it seems like we are building a house in a slope of 78.69%, that's not true. In fact, the slope is where we built is 65.95%. For the geological issues for the soil, we have our engineer that is here to explain, and he has done a good research on historically what happened there in 2006 or before that or after that, and he will explain in detail the situation, the condition of the soil and where we want to build. I have to just briefly say that when we build this house, either the granite, the rock is exposed, or minimal dirt is covering that, maybe a foot or foot and a half or something like that. And we are staying out of that V channel that is on the east side of the house. We are not cutting any oak trees, any indigenous trees, and the architecture is modern, kind of contemporary style. That's what the owner likes, I like, and we had another project recently in the city of Glendale, similar situation, where we designed a kind of traditional Spanish style, but the design board recommended that we change it to contemporary style, while the recommendation of that, that you have a book of neighborhood guidelines, single-family house neighborhood guidelines. That neighborhood is considered to be a Spanish style, but the design board recommended to be a kind of contemporary style. However, on the left and right there is no neighbor, and the closest to the, as I said, to the west of the house, it's like 300 feet. That's a Spanish style house, and we are not encroaching into the privacy of any neighbor here. We are not overlooking to the privacy. So overall, this is one of the good projects that I have designed, which meets all the standards and all the codes and ordinances. And I am asking the approval of this CUP. Now, beyond this, if there is any other issue that you want to hear from me or you have questions. By the way, again, our soil engineer, I think he will talk about that report of the street department regarding that. That is a mud. What happened there? They call it mudslide, not landslide, because it was a minimal slide of the soil. That report is from the street department. I think there's a kind of yardage that how many cubic yard of mud came down. So that will clarify that. First of all, we are building outside that mudslide area, and even that after this house is built, there will be an engineered drainage around the house, and this vacant lot, the way it is, nobody is living there. If a house is built, there will be somebody there. It will be more controlled maintenance. Even regarding the fire issue, we will have the irrigation around the house and fuel modification required by the fire department up to, I believe it's 100 feet. So constructing this house, I believe, will make this property more safer for itself and for the neighbors. That's all I can remember to talk about this project. And do you have any question?
Not at this time. Does your soils engineer, did he fill out a speaker slip?
Yeah, engineer and geologist. That's
What's the name? I'm sorry.
Gladson.
Here it is. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hagobian.
Thank you.
We know how much time is left? Okay, I think at this point, if there's anyone else that wishes to speak for the applicant, it'll be 3 minutes. I have 2 other speaker cards besides the engineer. I have Armin Hagobian and Corazon Nieves. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Richard Gladson. I'm with with Geo Systems, 1545 Victory Boulevard in Glendale.
Okay.
And I'm the engineer and geologist for this project. I've actually been working on this project for many years, about 5 or 6 years. The proposed development is to be notched into a granitic slope. It's very competent granite bedrock. As Ed said, it's essentially exposed at the surface. There's most of the slope in the area of the house has less than a foot of soil on it. There are some places, we found one place as much as 2 feet, I believe. And we dug at least 6 test holes around the area of the development. The bedrock at the site is very, very competent. The house is to be notched into the bedrock with engineered retaining walls supporting the cuts. All the foundations will be supported on the competent bedrock. This is the engineering properties of the granite in Glendale are very, very good. It's essentially as competent as concrete even. You had asked about the drainage issues. On the property, yes, it's east of the location of the house. There are 2 drainage channels. You can see them on the map there in the green. They drain into the cul-de-sac area, and they're paved concrete drainage channels. So one is just east of the residence. I don't know who had the pointer. One is just east of the residence, and then the second one is one of the drainage channels is right there, and then there's a second one. I can't really see it from here, but it's in this area. And what happened in February of 2006, apparently, this area to the south of the property, this is a hillside that continues up to a ridge. And in this area, the ground became saturated. There's a natural drainage course, a natural gully, and some debris washed out of that gully and was captured by these drainage channels, which is the way it's designed. And the debris crossed through this property and dumped out into the cul-de-sac. I can't remember the exact figures, but the building department or the public works in Glendale had some figure for the amount of debris. I think it was 6 or 3 cubic yards. 3 cubic yards, which is really not very much. I didn't actually see it myself. Okay, and
Hang on.
it came into the street in this area, and it really didn't affect the building site. The proposed development is outside of those drainage channels. And the drainage plan for the house will direct all the drainage around the new residence, and there really isn't a debris flow issue above this development in this part of the slope here. It's over.
Are there retaining walls or something similar to that being proposed that would control any possible additional superficial flow coming down?
Yeah, there's the rear of the residence will have, I believe it's right here, there'll be a retaining wall 15 feet back from the rear of the residence, and that retaining wall will have a drainage swale behind it, and the wall will have some freeboard, I believe 12 inches, and that's all designed to intercept any drainage coming off of the slope and take it around the residence.
What about off the 2 drainage channels that you mentioned?
The 2 drainage channels, they'll remain as is. There's this one over here, and the one that's near the residence, there are some precautions being taken in terms of design of the side yard walls to make sure that drainage doesn't splash onto the development. But the drainage channels are remaining the way they are. The channel that took, I understand, and I wasn't there, and no one's shown me the photos, but I understand that the bulk of the drainage came out of this channel that's 30 or 40
Was there
feet
any
away
walls
from it.
proposed to prevent that from coming down to the street if there was
No,
something
no, it's-
similar?
The scope of our investigation and the scope of our recommendations are to provide a safe building site, and that history of mud flow really doesn't affect the safety or stability of the building site.
What about the neighbors?
Well, that's beyond the scope of my investigation, or that's an existing problem that really has to do with the slope up here. I don't know who owns that property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Another speaker card for Armin Hagobian. Did you want to say anything at this time, or?
Thank you, Brad. I will defer my time for a later time if that's possible.
Okay. The next speaker card I have is for Corazon Nieves. Did you want to? Okay, but it'll all be part of the same time. It won't be an additional time, so you have to figure out how you're going to use the time. All right, next I have a speaker card, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. June Reina? So you're with the engineer? Okay, got it. Next I have Brian Duran. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Brian Duran. I live at 2900 Graceland Way in Glendale. I represent Chevy Chase Estates Association. Good morning, Mr. Kiesel, Mr. Collin. I'm here to express the concerns of the residents in the nearby area. One of those concerns does have to do with the landslides that have happened in the past, but from what we understand from the geology report, that does not affect this site and therefore is not that relevant to this discussion. So we don't have an objection to landslide provisions. However, we did have an objection to the design of the house and its fitting with surrounding design in the neighborhood. It is unclear whether or not that has been remedied at this point. The owner has been notified of this, and I have not received any updates, and I haven't seen any photos of the design. To my view, and others who have seen it, the design differs markedly from the surrounding design in the neighborhood, and we don't think that that's really compatible according to the guidelines. We'd like to see some kind of remedy to that effect. Also, with regard to the mitigation of the overage on the 50% regulation of the slope, I haven't seen enough to know exactly how this is going to be compensated for. Staff report says that this is okay, and the amount of grading seems okay, but the grading is related to the size of the lot, and as far as how much dirt can be removed. And I'm not seeing in the plans exactly how this slope has been accommodated. So that remains to be revealed, and until that time, we have a general objection to any kind of breach of the hillside guidelines beyond the 50% slope.
And in terms of the breach of the hillside guideline, can you be more specific as to where the breach?
Well, at this point, Mr. Hagobian stated that the slope is actually 65x%, and the guideline says 50%.
The 50% is a trigger method for requiring conditional use permit, which then allows there to be a public hearing and therefore the basically input given and opportunity for neighbors within 500 feet to participate.
I understand. What we're after is how close can we get to that guideline rather than how far away can we approve something over that guideline.
Okay.
Right.
And
That's
then
all
in terms
for today.
of, I'm sorry.
Any questions?
Yeah, one more. You had mentioned the actual design of the house. Are you concerned with it? Mr. Hagobian was mentioning that it was going to be like a modern or a contemporary.
Yes.
Is that something that you feel from the Homeowners Association is the actual architectural style is not compatible with the homes there, or?
Correct. It's not compatible with the other homes. If you drive onto Hollywood Place and you look down the street, you see very similar style on one side of the street, and this house is markedly different. It looks more commercial than residential.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I have Nasis Bakali. Did I pronounce it close?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, Bakalis.
Bakalik? Did you want to come up and?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Athanasios Vakalis actually is the name. Nasis is a short version of the name that I used because most people cannot pronounce my name.
Right.
Anyway, I lived I'm a neighbor. I've been up there. I remember the mudslide. When it happened, it seemed like it was a big mudslide, but it was cleared like in a day, I think. So, I'm sorry. I remember there's been construction before in the area. There was a new house that was built at the intersection of that road and Gregory. There's a curve there. I think that was built like a few years ago. I generally don't oppose the building of this house. I think it's going to help the neighborhood. I was always afraid of fires coming down from that area, and I think if someone builds there, it has the responsibility to clean the brush, so that will help in case of a fire. And I don't care about I'm an artist myself. I have not seen the house. I cannot imagine how bad that can be. I mean, an architect built it, so it's a matter of taste. I don't think people should just, they should be free to choose whatever design they want for their own residence. I mean, we live in America, for God's sake. So, I mean, that's my opinion. So I don't oppose that building, and I don't think it's going to be an inconvenience for the trucks coming in and clearing. I mean, I did oppose the when they built the tank under the golf course because I thought there will be a lot of traffic, and it was not a lot of traffic. So there was not a lot of traffic when they built the other house on the curve on Sir Gregory. So, I mean, a man has the right to build his house, I think, and if it's a huge lot, I mean, that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I have Annette Fianza.
Yes.
I got it right? Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Annette Fanza. I live at 3250 East Fairpoint Street in Pasadena, 91107. I'm here because I was there the day after the landslide on Hollywell in 2006. The home across the street was yellow tag. The people were evacuated out. I'm going to disagree with a couple people that were here, the gentleman that's the neighbor as well as the engineer in the back. It wasn't just minimal or superficial dirt. It was an island that came down, and we have pictures to show you, but it was an island. We pulled up the next day, and it was as if a river was flowing around this island that slid off the top of the mountain. Brush, trees, mud, rocks, and it wasn't one day, it was many days. And there were the news was there. The workers from Glendale were there cleaning it up. They had backhoes, they had bobcats cleaning it up, and it went on for days. In 2005, in January, you referred to it, you had another landslide in Glendale. And you had 9 homeowners that sued the city of Glendale. $15 million is what Glendale had to pay out because those homeowners lost their homes. They had opposed for building on unstable ground. Now for this home, and I know they keep saying it's a single dwelling, but it's a 2-story building with 4 levels put on compromised ground. This ground has already fallen. It is already gone. And if they're going to dig into it, into the granite, the rest of the land around it is going to be compromised also. And it is not like the gentleman said here where there's no neighbors around. You can see right here, if you look at the picture up here, there are many homes around.
On the other side of Hollywell.
The cul-de-sac is there. I'm not sure what that red balloon where the A is. I'm not sure what that's about. But if you look right across where this driveway, where the cars to go up to this home are going to be, there are homes back to back, door to door. You just can look right over the fence. There are all those homes. So any hill that goes down is going right into those homes. The same way it happened on Gladys down on Glenmore in Glendale. My other concern is that they said all that fell was 3 cubic yards. I have a dumpster at my home that's 4 cubic yards. It's about this big. I mean, I'm telling you, an island fell from the top of this hill and slid down. That's how much mud came down, and that was without a home on top of it. And now to put a 2-story, 4-level home on top of this, all of that will come crashing down. You said that, or somebody said that they were going to remove 1,200 cubic yards of soil. Well, who's going to monitor that soil when it's being removed? Where is it being put? Up and down the tiny little street of St. Gregory? The street that leads to Hollywell is St. Gregory. Tiny, narrow street. 1 car can only pass. When you turn the corner, you kind of have to toot your horn a little because you can't see around the bend. These are big dumpsters that are going to be bringing up concrete pipes, bringing down 1,200 cubic yards of soil. All of this is going to disrupt the whole neighborhood. My concern, just the final thing I want to say is my concern is this land has been compromised already. The hill has already fallen. If they're saying they're building next to it, they still have to stabilize this 2-story, 4-level home, and they're going to be compromising the rest of the mountain. If we all remember Conchita with the land, the land fell twice there. We don't want to see that in Glendale, and we don't want to see Glendale having to pay out another $15 million because homes below it are going to be damaged. Do you have any questions for me?
The one you referred to from 2005, is that the Gladys one?
That's the Gladys one where 9 homeowners sued because they opposed to have the building on Gladys, and the land slid right down into Glenmore.
And from my understanding, Gladys is up above Glenmore, and it's a street to street. It's not like a street in between
Correct.
homes,
Best I understand, it just fell right into that area.
because you have back-to-back lots.
That's the way I understand
rather
it.
than a lot, and then a street, and then more homes.
And if you're looking at this, where the hill fell, it's not that big of a street at all. It's a tiny little area.
I've driven Hollywell.
Okay, you've been up there. Okay.
Couple times.
So we have some pictures in a little bit we can show you, but it was, when I'm telling you, it was not 3 cubic yards. It was a good chunk of the mountain that came down, and it could happen again, and you've seen in other areas in California where it's happened again, and it wasn't that long ago.
Are these photos that you can leave with me, or
I believe we can.
is it a lot?
I could leave them with you, but
'Cause they're
We
gonna
want to
be
make sure
part
we
of
get
the
them
public
back. It was
record.
expensive to get these done.
it reminds me of a story where the
Hold on, we'll get if it. Okay. 'Cause
I can get them
usually
to you by
anything
the end of the day. I can get them to you probably on a disk drive of some type if you need them to be that also, if that helps you.
Once something becomes part of the public hearing, we've got to keep it.
Can I get back to you later today to get you?
Can you provide yourself the copy? You know what I'm saying?
Can I possibly?
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'll talk to you in a second about that if that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you. But these pictures are important. It was on the news. You had every news. Telemundo was out there. NBC, CNN. Everybody was out there when this hill fell. And I'm not sure how the neighbors. The one gentleman said it was a one-day thing. It was a long time that they were shoveling and shoveling mud and dirt and trees and bushes and wood. Everything came down. Rocks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker card I have is for Leo Saraguenta. Did I pronounce that right?
Where do you want us to show you the pictures? Do you want us to face you?
Yeah, that's probably best. And then I guess that way the cameras will be able to see it too, hopefully.
My name is Leo Saragetta, and I live at 3055 Hollywell Place in the cul-de-sac,
Which house is this in relationship to the proposed?
directly across the street from the proposed house to be built. Mr. Kiesel and Mr. Collins, I want to explain these pictures to you. Can I go around here?
Yeah, but if you can still be able to use the mic, that would be great.
As you can see here, this was flagged by the by the fire department and the Glendale Police Department. We we were evacuated for 3 days and 3 nights at 1:30 in the morning. At 1:30 in the morning, we were evacuated. We had to get dressed and leave in 5 minutes.
Was that on March 9th, 98?
In February. The camera's not set. This is the day of the slides. In February of 2006, where we had to evacuate. This is the major slide that the engineer here for the city, it really concerns me that he's works for the city and he's an engineer. I hope he sees these pictures here. This is some of the debris that came down, as you can see. So, right here, I don't see 3 yards, sir, of cubic
Go ahead.
earth.
We're not here to dispute. Just go ahead and give me. Then the main thing, too, if I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but again, remember the proposal is for a new single family that happens to be on a slope that's more than 50%. So you want to make sure that what you're sharing with us is relevant to the proposal of a new single family.
Mr. Collins,
Required
this
to
is-
have a soils report and meet
This
all
is-
sorts of
Mr.
engineering.
Collins, this is very relevant because we're not disputing the stability of where this site is for this proposed house. Up above that, it's like 85 or 90% of slope. And that's what comes down. Here's more equipment that was here. This is where the house wants to get built, right here. And the mud came down from two swales. The swale here, this one here, and right directly above where the home wants to get built, directly above it. 3 places it came down, Mr. Engineer.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that one for a second? The plants and trees that are there, that's the island that you were describing?
Yes, it came down right here.
Is there water that's going around that
There's
as well,
water,
or is that go
water
back up?
going down Chevy Chase all the way to St. Gregory, all the way down to Chevy Chase Street.
That's in the actual cul-de-sac part of the street? And
I live right here, and the
Understand.
house
And then-
wants.
I'm sorry.
This is the site right here where they want to build the house.
The end of the island or what we're calling the island, what was the approximate distance of, say, the dirt to your side of the street?
It came up to my driveway, on my driveway.
Okay.
This is my house right here. This is my property. That's my address, 3055. This is what came down. This is a river of mud. That's the last picture I want to show. This is on one side of the mountain. Again, we're showing the debris here that came down. As you can see from up above, many, many tons of soil came down, not 3 yards. This is some of the workers that were here. The city had 10 trucks there, 10 trucks to haul away the soil, 10 for the 3 cubic yards, 10. This is the swales right now. This shows you that this is continuously coming down, continuously coming down. In 2007, the city sent out 1 truck and 1 bobcat because we had a minor slide. And somebody took a video of it, but we don't have it. So these swales are continuously coming down. Soil is continuously coming down. Turn it over. That's the other swale that's coming down. And Mr. Hogobian can say, well, these are clippings when they clear the hillside. But it's not. If the city goes down, you can see that it's just 1/8 of an inch of grass there. This is 4 days after the slide. The 2 major slides in the same day were just some of the trucks that were lined up all the way down Hollywell Place. And the city did an excellent, excellent job of cleaning this up. This is a picture worth 10,000 words. This is the little cubic 3 yards, Mr. Engineer, for the city that really concerns me. As you can see, and in back of this, where the mailbox was where the dirt went all the way. This was not a minor slide, like the gentleman here said. It was a major slide. I was on CNN. I was on Telemundo. I made the Dan Rather News from CBS News, NBC News. It was we had major people that came to see this.
And that's your house in the back?
That's my residence. I live at this residence here, 3055. We evacuated for 3 days, and we couldn't move in until 3 days later.
Neither the houses that are on this side either.
And the 2 other houses around the cul-de-sac. And Mr. Hogobian says there's no houses here in the area. How can he say that? There's houses all the way around, except on the property that Ms. Cora owns. Very quickly, I want to say, very quickly, I want to say that the property above this site is like at 90 degrees. And now we have, the swales are filled. We have boulders coming down.
The house that's up above this, or the property that you're saying is at 90%, is
The
that,
property above the site where they want to build this home is 85 to 90%, and I'm not an engineer or anything.
is there a house on that property?
There's no property, there's no houses up there, and that's where the mountain is not stable. The property where the house wants to get built on, that one, it could be stable, it could be granite, a foot down, but above that, it's not. As you can see from the swale here, there's pictures, there's rocks coming down all the time. These two rocks here, and Mr. Hagobian can send his geologists over there to show you the size of these rocks that come down. One of these, I'm not sure which one, came down, landed in the middle of the cul-de-sac. It's unstable, way up on top. And if you look up there, and if the city goes over there to look, without binoculars, you can see rocks that, as each rainfall passes, more rocks get exposed, and they just keep coming down. Why you would want to live there, Ms. Cora, I don't know.
Can you try and wrap up, sir?
Yes, sir.
And then I have a question.
So I just want to point out that this is not a minor hillside slide. And the cul-de-sac is very small, and how in the world are you going to put all these trucks in there? I don't know, and disrupt everything. Thank you.
The point is, with the slope being what it is, at an average of 79%, this is a major problem with the hill.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I have one last question. You can go. So, would you say then that you're opposed to any development on this property, or opposed to?
Mr. Collins, in 2006, there were many representatives from the city that were there. I don't know if they were engineers or who they were, council members, and they all say there's no way that we would ever permit a home to be built there. I don't know if this gentleman was there. Apparently, he doesn't remember. But no home should be built there. The cul-de-sac, where the trash trucks can't even make a turn there because it's that narrow. And you have cars parked all the way around, and you're going to disrupt this whole thing. St. Gregory also is a very narrow street, has two blind spots there. How are you going to be hauling all this dirt down there and trucks going back and forth? And this gentleman says that when they built the golf course and they did that reservoir, it didn't disrupt anything. Well, hello, it was down on Chevy Chase. It didn't occur on St. Gregory, the narrow street, or Hollywell Place. It was down below, so of course it's not going to affect us.
Okay, thank you.
We've had enough lawsuits in the city here where the city people didn't listen to the homeowners, and consequently, like we had that $12 to $15 million lawsuit on Gladys, it could happen again. And thank God that certain people are not here with the city anymore, that whatever happened in those days should not happen anymore. Glendale, you have to do the right thing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you very much. And then if you could leave those photos, that would be great, since they're now part of the public record. Okay. The applicant has an opportunity to rebut. Have you decided how you're going to split up your time?
This is a document from the city of Glendale. I'm reading that. February 23, 2006. Picked up 2 yards of dirt. 2 yards of dirt.
Cubic
That
yards?
is City of Glendale's document here from the street department.
I'm sorry.
We are talking technical language. If the debris was like about this much high, 5-inch or 10-inch or 6-inch, when you put together, it becomes 2 yards. That's the technical language. The lady is talking about Gladys. If something happened in Gladys, then so many houses that have been built in Glendale in Hillside and are being built in Glenside everybody has to stop because something happened in the Gladys. Can we refer the Gladys to every other house in Glendale that shouldn't be built? We are talking technical language. There will be caissons dig into underneath the house, the foundation, to go all the way inside the hard rock by maybe 5, 6, 10 feet. And a civil engineer, a geologist, a structural engineer is liable and responsible for what he does and stamps and certifies. Those who haven't gone through the process of getting a building permit in city of Glendale can speak like that. They don't know what's happening. When you submit a set of plans to the city, you have to have soil report, you have to have the structural design, you have to have the details, and you have to get this done through a lengthy process. You have to have a drainage plan, you have to have the calculations. Everything that we say here is based on facts and numbers and technical language. The gentleman was saying that the councilman said that no house should be built there. Is it there or here? Is it where we want to build or it is where the mud came down? We are not responsible for, that's the, by the way, city's property on top. City has to take care of it. If it caused problems for neighbors, I'm sorry for that. We feel sorry for that. Let city take care of it, do something if they have to. So then let's not generalize issues and talk non-technical language that these people, they want to build 4-level. It's not 4-level. When they say 4-level, maybe you think first, second, third, and fourth. It's not like that. 2-level here and 2-level here. So it's 4-level, but it's 2-story in any given point. So let's talk technical language and talk accurate. When I said that there is no house on the left or right side of this property, I was right. There is no house on the right and left side of this property. The one on the west is 300 feet away from this property. And on the right side, there's nothing. Across the street, yes, there are houses. So when the owner wants to build and live in that house, she and the family is more sensitive to the safety because they will live there. That's why we have the soil engineer, that's why we'll have a structural engineer, civil engineer. Oh, we have to pass through all these hurdles to make sure that what we build there will be safe for itself and for the neighbors. This will be a very extremely safe house compared to existing houses there. Most probably some of those houses don't have the fire sprinkler system because it was built many years ago. Maybe the engineering standards that today exist, today's codes of construction is by far different than used to be 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So all the safety issues will be considered, designed, and go through the process to get a permit that is much better house than most houses in that neighborhood. That's all I can say. If you have any questions.
None at this time. Thank you.
So you have the copy of the City of Glendale's street department that shows that 2 cubic yards, not 3 cubic yards. Thank you.
Great, thank you. You can, if you want to give the photos to Vista, that would be great. I'm sorry?
He's going to take pictures of it.
May I give this copy of the city?
Sir, I believe you. I believe you. I believe it came from the city. This is the facts.
And those photos will be taken in and we can review it.
Yards for this, all these trucks.
All right, there's no one else.
Do I have time for mine or? But
I don't have a speaker slip for you. It's supposed to be with me. We were already in the rebuttal phase. Go ahead.
Mr. Kiesel, Mr. Collins, I'm Palma Vincenti, and I live in Upper Chevy Chase Canyon at 3365 Figueroa Street. After listening to this discussion, I'm a concerned resident, and I'd just like you to clarify something for me. I'd like to find out how you can make a finding as far as the uniqueness of this property, because it's hillside property, very much like most of Upper Chevy Chase Canyon. And I know that the two of you and your predecessors and your colleagues are the experts as far as the code goes, and that you've put in years and probably thousands of hours of disseminating different material to figure out why you made the code. And I can't figure out in my own mind how you can make a finding when the code reads 50%, how you came up with that particular number. And this property has an average slope of 79%. They may be building on the part that I believe is 69%, but that's still quite a bit over what the code is. And it just seems like such a lessening of, or a deviation of the code, that you have spent countless hours figuring out why we should have a code at 50%. And what concerns me as a taxpayer in Glendale is that perhaps if just based on the information that I've heard today, they might be able to build a very solid house down at the bottom. But what about the unstable ground up above it? And with it coming, the possibility of it coming down, it just seems like you two as experts and your staff have a responsibility to think about the law, why it was put into place. You put it into place at 50%, and this just seems like such a wild deviation from it that I don't know how you can possibly make a finding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kiesel, do you want to?
This is a conditional use permit, or a public hearing for a conditional use permit, not a public hearing for a variance. So there aren't hardship or unique findings needed to be made for this application. It's a conditional use permit that has, certain other findings, consistency with general plan, project won't be detrimental to the public health and safety, won't conflict with adjacent uses, and adequate facilities are provided. So it doesn't have any findings like variances that require you to make whatever's occurring on the site. There's a hardship. So there's a difference there. And basically, what's proposed is a single-family house. Where it's being proposed is a single-family neighborhood, and the land use designation and the zoning of the area reflect that. Based on the use, based on the soils report, based on the fact that the surrounding area is developed with single-family uses, based on the soil, water, sewer, I'm sorry, not soil, water, sewer, the public facilities are in the area, we were able to make findings in the affirmative for this project. So it's totally different from variance findings.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gobian, and that'll be
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Roger. Armin Hagobian with Edward Hagobian Associates, 220
got 3 minutes.
South Kenwood. Just kind of going over a lot of the issues that we're faced with. If I may have the... in the beginning of this project, we met with the Homeowners Association. Several members came out and we presented the project. the overall concerns that they would have had would have been addressed at that point, and they had no major concerns. And we were very appreciative of them coming out and stating whatever the facts that they had, within the homeowners association as the members. Subsequently, we had the neighbors come out as well with the homeowners association reps. I think there was one or two that came out, that the concerns that were not there in the beginning or were not addressed by the homeowners associations were taken into effect. Now, as stated, the soil engineer has given the facts of where the house is, how it's located, the engineering, structural, civil, grading, etc. And the general consensus is that there is a debris that's coming from way above our property line that belongs to the city of Glendale. So that needs to be addressed with the engineering department, with the ownership of that land, and how that's going to be mitigated to safeguard not only our property but the remainder of the property. So it seems as though it is not our property that is the concern, but rather beyond our property that is the concern, is what I keep hearing. And I think the engineering department, public works needs to look into that. Additionally, I've listening to the reports and the concerns, realized that all the homes that are built along Hollywell below us here are on manufactured pads, which is a concern as well. These homes are built, are non-conforming existing conditions on manufactured pads that are additionally detrimental to themselves. We are building on stable soil here. Concrete, as soil engineer has stated, that is as strong as concrete. It is a fact. It has been introduced into the soils report. It has been submitted for review, and it shall go through a very extensive review by the building department and the engineering public works department. Mr. Leo has mentioned a few times in his conversations that he is not concerned with our project, yet he has brought up the subject matter of the debris coming down way and above our property. So I like to make sure that Mr. Leo is clarifying that he does not have an issue with our project, but rather a mudslide that's coming above. I'm sorry, it's my turn, sir. I did not disrupt you. That is coming from way above the property line. I'd like to take that into account. If staff from engineering department needs to look into this, we would like to have them thoroughly investigate the situation. Obviously, the exhibits that have been submitted now, they're public record, we'll take that and review them. But we have and designed many homes in City of Glendale, and we have abided by the current zoning planning codes of this project and many other projects. And again, this will go through a very, very tedious, extensive, arduous review process by, again, your department, by the building department, by the fire department, engineering department, so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to close the public hearing. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing, will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking here today at the hearing or by submitting any written responses, and have provided us with their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeals provision, Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from the Building and Safety Section, Permit Service Center, located on this floor of this building. I'm going to take this case in under submission, and a decision will be rendered shortly. As I mentioned, the hearing is now officially closed. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. And, sir, if you could leave the photos with Vista, that would be great.
Also what he gave me.
I have a copy of that, unless that's something different.
I'm not sure what he gave you.
I'm assuming it's...
It's 2 weeks after the mudslide. That's why this was generated because residents said there was a pile of dirt left on the street. That's why it was only 2 cubic yards.
Looks
You
like
could
it's a
read it,
copy.
and the date also.
Got it.
So you have it. Thank you.
Thank you. It is 10:49 on the 26th. Thank you very much.